Hey folks, this is my wife's 2014 Ford Explorer, and we had an issue with the parking brake. If you Google parking brake issues, you will get a lot of information about what happens at the rear of the car, the calipers, the pin, the cable, etc. But if your issue is in the front, like the foot lever, then if anything like me, you're not going to find much information at all on the internet. So I went ahead and bought the new unit to replace. Seemed like a relatively easy thing to do, but it's not quite as easy as I'd hoped, which is why I'm making this video. So just to be clear, again, if your issue is with the foot ratchet or anything with that system at the front, then I just have a couple tips here in this video for you. There's a place in the middle of the car that the cables come together and you can disconnect the two cables. If there's a little bit of tension, then you won't be able to disconnect the cables, and you'll probably have to obviously cut on this side so that you get to replace that part. In order to access the mechanism, I recommend that you take as many of these panels off as possible. As you can see, I haven't even replaced this, put this one back on yet, but I took this one off, which I don't think was strictly necessary, but it is to get this one off. I ended up taking this off. I ended up taking, I think this one stayed on, but the black one that's underneath here I took off. Yeah, this and this. And that was just to access the unit. Now, it ends up feeling like quite a daunting job because the unit itself has all of these holes in it, and I didn't know going into the job like what was going to be what and how easy this thing would be to take out. So let me just tell you, get my tools straight here. There are only 3 mounting points to address, even though there are all these holes around the unit. I guess those are just from the manufacturing process. The easiest one to access is this one just behind the pedal, and that is a 12 bolt. Relatively easy to get, just unbolt that one. The one that's probably the hardest is the one up behind it. It's really hard to get to when this thing is mounted within the car, and you're going to need sort of a pivot head ratchet wrench, and that is a 13, and that is not a bolt, that's a nut that screws off of a stud. Now that nut is sort of thread locked, so it takes, and the stud is quite long, so it takes quite a long time to undo it, but you just go slow. And again, if you've removed a couple of those panels on the inside, you'll get a little bit extra movement here so that you can do that. And once the nut gets to the top, be careful not to lose it, because it's really hard to get access in there. Maybe a long pair of needle nose pliers. And then finally, this mounting point here, which is on the side of the car, and that's why I recommended that you remove this panel here, so that it's a little bit easier to get your fingers in and kind of feel what's going on. Now, a tool setup like this is actually pretty useful, because you can kind of go in from the side and get the bolt out. Oh, and that's a 10, by the way. So just again, 12, 13, 10. I found that pretty helpful. Had to sort of push to the side one of the wiring looms, and you can also get in from underneath with a shorter socket. You can just get in like so. This is for the 10. Trying to get my light on it there for you. Get in like so, goes on top, and then you can tighten and loosen that 10 on the side. So those 3, and you'll be able to wiggle this thing out. The rest of the installation, I mean, putting this in the floor panel and then clipping this underneath, this just slides into kind of a bracket, and then clipping the cable in should be relatively straight. This is the back of the car, this is the front of the car. In order to remove the tension and remove the old component, I had to just cut right here. And then I pop this out. This just has 2 clips on either side, and that's how this comes out. And then everything is free to pull it out. Now, you will have to get the old piece of cable out to put the new one in, and those are held in by these little retaining clips right here. Those are actually pretty soft. I don't know if you can see that. Those are actually pretty soft, and you can bend those out to remove the old cable head before you put the new cable head in, line everything up, and then pull the pin to create the tension again. Forward, and do all of that before you pull the pin with the yellow zip ties on it. And when you do that, that will release the tension and everything should tighten up and you'll be good. I can't think of any other like main tips. That's the main thing, because again, going into this, I didn't know how hard this would be. The whole thing did take me probably 2 hours, but I was learning along the way. Hopefully this is a little bit quicker for you, and this is helpful. Let me know any questions below. Thanks.